Hi guys, welcome to AquaDream. Today's topic is plant feeding without fertilizers. I have 38 low-tech aquariums in my studio, and some of them with filter, most of them are even with no filter. And all of my low-tech aquariums, I never add any fertilizers to all my low-tech aquariums. This big cube aquarium is also with no CO2 and with no fertilizer. How is it possible, you might ask? Look at these plants. Look how beautiful, lush, thick and healthy they look. So I do not use fertilizer, I do not use CO2. What do? How does it work? So today we are diving into one of my favorite topics, and how to feed your aquarium plants without adding any bottled fertilizers. I'll show you exactly what I use to create a nutritious substrate that keeps all my plants healthy, thriving for years. I show you some examples of my mature aquariums, low-tech tanks with no CO2 and no fertilizers, and still thriving, growing, and doesn't need any rebuild. So how to keep the plants growing? So there is a fun part. I'll show you my secret recipe, soil mix. So I will show you all the ingredients I personally use for my nutritious substrate. I'm going to show you my recipe, my mix substrate, and I give you tips on when and how and why to use these ingredients. Why are they beneficial for your plants and for your plant growth? And we will take a quick tour of some of my tanks. I will show you 4 of my low-tech tanks, some of them with no filter, but all of them do not have any bottled fertilizers, only the nutritious substrate. And before we start, let me ask you a question. Do you currently use liquid fertilizers for your low-tech aquarium? We are talking today only about aquariums with no CO2. So tell me, do you use any liquid fertilizers? Just comment yes or no. So why feed the plants without fertilizer? How is it possible? How do plants get all the nutrients and how do they grow? So why no fertilizers? I will tell you why. So the main idea is to avoid constant dosing of these fertilizers, because if you use fertilizer, you always have to remember to add this fertilizer once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. Depends on how you use it and what type of fertilizer. But you have to remember about this. You have to follow the dosing. Also, to not use the fertilizer, you can get that stability, especially it is good for the beginners. So without fertilizer, it is much easier to take care of your low-tech aquarium for the beginners or busy aquarists. So if you don't have much time, if you're always on business trip, if you're busy, you don't have to deal with fertilizer, you don't have to remember about them, and you can have stable aquarium without fertilizer. Because if you don't add the fertilizer regularly, or if you add fertilizer too much, you will have a lot of algae. So that is not good as well, especially for low-tech aquariums. And also more natural nutrient release from the substrate. That's why not using fertilizer is better. Using only the nutritious substrate, because nutritious substrate will release all the nutrients for low-tech plants and low-tech aquarium slowly. Bottled fertilizers releases all the nutrients in the water column quickly. Low-tech aquariums and with low-tech plants, plants are growing slowly there. So they absorb all the nutrients also slowly. The benefits of not using fertilizers are less algae risk. As I said, you won't have much algae issue if you don't use fertilizer. If you use fertilizer for your low-tech aquarium, you will have algae issue, because as I mentioned, your plants are growing slowly there is no CO2 injection, and so they don't need that fast bottled fertilizer nutrients from the water column. And if there is excess of that nutrients in the water column, of course algae will take turn and they will grow very fast. The benefits of using substrate, the nutritious substrate, instead of liquid fertilizer is long-term plant health. So if you provide all the nutrients in your good nutritious substrate for the plants, and they will be released slowly for a very long term, you will provide that nutrients for the plant growth for a very long time. Some of my aquariums, as I mentioned, are already 3 and more years old, and they are still good and grow. Also, the benefit of using the substrate only is the minimal weekly maintenance. So you don't have to maintain your aquarium much. You don't have to change water often. You don't have to deal with algae because you won't have them much. If you use liquid fertilizer, you might have a lot of algae issues on the glass, on the hardscape, on the rocks, and you always have to clean it up and deal with that algae. But with just using the substrate with no bottled fertilizer, you won't have that much algae, so you don't need to do maintenance much. I only do maintenance for my new tanks once a week, for my mature tanks once in 2 weeks, and I only do water change, slight cleaning glass from inside because there is no algae, and that's it. I don't do anything else, and I collect as much waste as possible from the surface of the substrate. That's all I do, because I don't deal with algae, because I do not use the liquid fertilizer. I only use the nutritious substrate. And so, ingredients. What do I use for every of my aquarium when I build it? How do I build my nutritious substrate? Let's look at all the ingredients, step-by-step recipe, and I'm going to demonstrate what do I use for that recipe. I prepared all the ingredients on the tray and I'm going to show it to you. And so the first ingredient that I use, but keep in mind that I always use the base for the bacteria colonies, which is the river pebbles or lava rock. I always use that first layer, base layer, for that bacteria colonies, for the biofilter, and then I start building that nutritious substrate for the plants. So the first thin layer is I apply clay-based soil. The clay-based soil, I'm going to show it to you. I apply that clay-based soil. It looks in granules like this, but when it gets wet, it becomes powder. So first I apply a thin layer of this clay-based soil. So this clay-based soil holds nutrients long-term and releases slowly. And it is very rich in iron and other minerals for the plant growth, and it is great for root feeders. You can ask for this substrate in your aquarium store. Next, the second layer, I put a little bit of Vermicast. Vermicast, the worm castings. The Vermicast you can get in the flower market. A little bit, a very thin layer of that Vermicast. Organic nitrogen source. You know that the nitrogen is very essential for the plant growth. It also boosts microbial activity. So there is the bacteria loves that, and it's very beneficial and nutrient for the plant growth. But remember that before you apply that, I suggest you to rinse it and soak it to remove ammonia from that, because it might release ammonia at the first 4 weeks of your new aquarium. The third layer, I recently started applying a coconut coir. Why did I decide to add coconut coir as the extra substrate, because before I used to make terrariums, planted terrariums, and I had that coconut coir for a very long time and I didn't use it. So I just researched about the coconut coir. I'm going to show it to you, that coconut coir. So I researched about coconut coir and I found that it improves structure of the substrate and aeration, and it also provides low carbon release, and it creates habitat for beneficial bacteria. So actually bacteria loves to live there and colonize. And it slightly softens water over time, so it slightly lower the pH over time in your tank. And I will show you today the example where I already used that coconut coir, and these aquariums are even without filter, and these aquariums where I used the coconut coir show a very stable and I think it really works by lowering the pH as well, because Monte Carlo in my Iwagumi ball aquarium with no filter looks so well where I used a thin layer of coconut coir as well. So maybe that is also one of the reasons why. I also want to show you I just recently got this Vermicast, but not like I showed you before, like this, but in granules, like this. This is also Vermicast, but it looks like this. You can also get it in the flower market. So I haven't used that yet, but I will use it in my next project instead of this Vermicast. Like this, I want to try that in granules and see how it works, if there is any difference. So again, the clay-based substrate first, then a little bit of Vermicast, then I put a little bit of coconut coir, and all of that layers I cover with sometimes I add root tubs as well. The root tubs or granule flower fertilizer that you can get from the flower market. Sometimes I add this only for the projects for the carpet plants, for the extra good nutrients, because carpet plants usually require a very good nutritious substrate. So when I use carpet plants for my low-tech tanks, I use that root tubs and I add them as well on the Vermicast or before the coconut coir. Yes, but for other tanks I usually don't use it, and I cover all of these layers, different layers, with just a regular any aquarium soil that you can buy in the aquarium store. So I cover everything as the top layer with the regular aquarium soil. So aquarium soil, regular aquarium soil, also will provide minerals and the good aesthetic look of your scape, of course, because it's at the top and you won't see all other layers at the bottom. As you can see here, you can only see in the front, you can only see the aquarium soil, but you don't see all other layers of the nutritious substrate because I hide them and I only put the regular aquarium soil at the top and to the front, so you won't see it. So these are all 1, 2, 3, 4 ingredients. Again, clay-based substrate, Vermicast, coconut coir, and root tubs for the carpet plants if needed, and everything covered with the regular aquarium soil. These are all the ingredients that I use for my nutritious substrate, and once I see already with all my tanks, this substrate provides all the nutrients for a very long term for the plant growth. But just an extra tip for you, for tanks with shrimp or sensitive fish, I would recommend you to use a very small amount of all of that organic extra substrates like Vermicast. So I always use just a very thin layer, just a little bit of it. So now let's look at some examples of my tanks where I used that mix substrate, and I will show you some of the new ones and some of the very old ones, so you can compare them. You only can see the aquarium soil here, but actually inside there are all of these ingredients that I showed you. So the clay-based substrate, the Vermicast, coconut coir, and regular aquarium soil that you can see here. And look at all of these plants. They grow just beautiful. No CO2, no fertilizer. Look at this. But a very important thing is that you also have to use the right plants for your low-tech tank with no CO2. So I use only the plants that do not require the high level of CO2, which are, for example, in this tank, are Sagittaria, Cryptocarina venti, Cryptocarina packetti, Anubis nana petit, Bucephalandra, Vallisneria nana, Java fern at the back, and the floating plants, and the Anubias barteri at the top there. So you can see that all of these plants are growing very well because they all get all of that nutrients that they need for the plant growth from the substrate only. So I do not use fertilizer here. I don't need it because all of these plants, they get enough nutrients. They're slowly growing here because there is no CO2 injection. And so they absorb that nutrients from the substrate slowly, and the substrate releases all the nutrients also slowly. Let's look at the next example. So guys, this ball aquarium is 3 years old. No filter, no CO2, no fertilizer. Look at the plants. They're still looking so good. What I used here is the Nutritious substrate. So 3 years ago, I might not remember, and I didn't make video of making this aquarium, but I'm sure that I used Vermicast, that's for sure. I used that clay-based substrate, that's for sure. And I used just the regular aquarium soil, and I covered everything with the sand. So, and I used a little bit of root tubs as well. But I didn't use coconut coir here 3 years ago. But still, you can see how plants are still growing. They still have that nutrients for growth. They still can get all of that nutrients from the substrate. This substrate, 3 years old, and still releases all the nutrients that the plants need for the growth. Isn't it amazing? It is amazing. So again, if I start using the fertilizer, liquid bottled fertilizer here, I will get algae immediately. Again, because plants are slowly growing here. There is no CO2 injection. There is only a low level of naturally dissolved CO2 released by microorganisms, fish, and other inhabitants. So they're slow growing plants and still getting all the nutrients here. So looking at this aquarium 3 years old, I still not even think about rebuilding this aquarium. It's still looking good. I don't need to rebuild it. All right, let's move on, and I'm going to show you another example. It's also 3.5 years old, no filter, no CO2, no fertilizer. Again, here as the Nutritious substrate, I used the clay-based substrate. I used Vermicast here as well. I used a little bit of root tubs as well, and I covered everything with the regular aquarium soil and the sand as well. Yeah, and still 3.5 years old. Plants are still looking good. Not, of course, after 3.5 years, not as fresh, juicy, and green as they were for the first 2 years. But still, look, and even all of that immersed plants are still growing there, still looking good. I still, this ball of my favorites, I still don't think about rebuilding it because it's still looking fine. Yeah, so again, all that nutrients are still there even if it's 3.5 years old. And I'm going to show you one more example. Let's move on. I'm going to put you up like this. Okay. Now let's look at this ball aquarium. Guys, this is one of my favorite. Again, no filter, no CO2, no fertilizer. Iwagumi Scape with Monte Carlo carpet plant. Look at this. This aquarium is 1.5 years old. It's beautiful. Again, If I start using fertilizer here, I will get algae everywhere. So I don't do that. And look, the Monte Carlo second plant needs a good nutritious substrate, which I provided for it to grow. And so here, in example, in this aquarium, I used a clay-based substrate as the first layer as well. Then I used a little bit of Vermicast, and this aquarium was the first aquarium where I experimented with the coconut coir. So I used a thin layer of coconut coir, and I didn't use the root tubs this time here. Did not have root tubs at that time when I was building this tank. And I covered everything with the regular aquarium soil. And still, even with no root tubs, still look at this carpet. It looks beautiful. It's growing very well. 1.5 years, looking amazing. No fertilizer, no CO2. And last aquarium I'm going to show you, last example is Iwagumi bowl, which is 3 years old, guys. This Iwagumi is 3 years old, and look, the carpet is not as fresh and as it was in its first 1.5, 2 years, but still I don't really need to change to rebuild this aquarium. It's still, look, if you can notice, all of that oxygen bubbles are still coming up, so there is still photosynthesis is happening. This carpet, Monte Carlo, is still photosynthesizing, so it's still getting all the nutrients that it needs from that nutritious substrate. And here I used the same layers, except coconut coir. I didn't use coconut coir here. I used the clay-based substrate, I used Vermicast, I used the root tubs, and I used the regular aquarium soil at the top. And still looking good, still growing slowly but surely, still looking fine. So I still enjoy this aquarium. Maybe 1 more year and I will rebuild it, or maybe not. Let's see how it goes. Maybe this substrate will still provide all the nutrients for another few years. Who knows? Let's see. So now you can see examples, and now you can build your aquarium with that nutritious substrate, so you don't have to use CO2 injection. You just need to provide all these nutrients. You have to use the right plants that can grow without high level of CO2. Yeah, and you can enjoy the growth of your plants, the healthy growth, because the plants will get all the nutrients slowly from the substrate for a very long term. Some key tips for the success. Guys, patience is key. Plants feed from roots slowly. So plants get all the nutrients from the substrate slowly. Plants in low-tech aquarium grow slowly. Do not expect that your plants will grow in 1-2 weeks immediately. Yes, there are some species of plants, for low-tech plants as well, that can grow fast, but most of them are slowly growing, especially in low-tech aquarium. So do not expect fast growth, because you don't use CO2, you don't use fertilizers, so do not expect everything happens quickly. Also, remember to balance your light with your nutrients. For low-tech aquariums, if you use that nutritious substrate, you must use enough plants so all the plants can absorb and take all of that nutrients that you provided. If you provide all of that nutrients, and if you build that nutritious substrate, but you plant only one cryptocorinna, and that's all, you will have algae issues and your aquarium won't be healthy because there will be excess nutrients. So if you use nutritious substrate, be sure you can provide a big mass of plants so they can grow and take all of that nutrients. They can compete, and they can compete between each other. They can compete with algae, because algae is always waiting when there is nobody taking nutrients from the water column. Once plants stopped growing or there is not enough plants, algae will take turn and grow. Plant heavy from day one. not in the future, today one plant, tomorrow one, in 1 week one, another plant, in 1 year the third plant. No, you have to, when you build your aquarium, you build your nutritious substrate, you have to plant it heavily from the first day of build, like I always do. When I build aquarium, I plant it heavily, because I know that some plants might not adapt to a new environment, they might melt completely. This happens sometimes. I know that new tank will release a lot of nutrients, especially first 4 weeks. So there must be a lot of plants, and especially first 3-4 weeks, the plants are not really growing. They're still adapting. They're not rooted yet into the substrate. So to provide that stability for your aquarium, always remember to use enough plants. And of course, maintenance. Don't forget to maintain your aquarium. Vacuum only the top of your substrate. Never go deep into the substrate. Avoid disturbing all of the layers in your substrate. Never touch it. Only the top, carefully. And then when there is, like, after 2, 3 or more years, when you notice that plants are stopped growing, they're not getting really enough nutrients from the substrate, and you don't want to rebuild your aquarium, you can slightly add some extra substrate, a regular aquarium soil at the top, and you will see that plants will start growing back again. But I usually don't do it, because that nutritious substrate that I provide is for years, and after like 3 or 3.5 years, I really want to rebuild the tank from scratch again, because I want to see new design, new plants. Right, that was all about today's topic, plant feeding without fertilizers. Let's wrap up. And so feeding plants without fertilizers is all about starting with a strong, nutritious substrate. Once you provided all these good nutrients in your substrate, you don't need fertilizer, especially for low-tech aquarium. You don't need it at all. That's only the substrate. There are many people who issue algae, who's having algae issues because they add liquid fertilizers, but their aquarium is low-tech aquarium with no CO2, where plants are growing slowly. Alright, that's all for today, guys. If you liked today's topic and if it was helpful, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel. Also, don't forget to visit my stores, where you can find all the products and order it to your country that I personally use for all my aquariums. Also, don't forget that I provide a paid Telegram chat or membership on YouTube for private consultations. You can also subscribe to my membership on YouTube or my paid Telegram chat if you need a private consultation for your aquarium. And I'll see you next time. Bye!